for the Creators Update, we really started thinking about three themes. It was like, what can we do to really help break down the barriers to make it easier for you to develop your applications so the tech gets out of the way? We also heard your feedback. We want to fix real problems. Obviously, we want to push forward tech and move into new areas, but we also want to fix problems that you actually had today. And finally, we really wanted to focus on enabling you to engage with your users so we can get more done. Now, of course, whilst we're doing that, we spend a lot of time code reviewing, and our friends in marketing, they really felt that, this is how developers code review, on a bench with a yellow bike. Sounds just like what we do at Microsoft. So first of all, breaking down the barriers, really thinking about, Kevin already talked to you about the desktop bridge a little bit. I wanted to get into a little bit more detail. We really want to ensure that you could use your existing code and bring it to Windows 10 and take advantage of all the new Windows 10 features. We want to ensure that your end users really felt it was a smooth transition from your existing applications. There's tons of Windows applications out there. If we're going to move to the desktop bridge, we want to make it easier for you to migrate across to that new version, preserving all the settings, so your users feel like it's a pleasant experience and there's not a jarring experience of updating. But then we also know that people really love to integrate with the shell. The Windows shell is its shining moment in terms of how can your application take advantage of that. Lots of apps take advantage of file explorers, preview, and grouping. We're enabling that in the desktop bridge in the Creators Update, which we didn't enable beforehand. And then finally, really thinking about from a developer delight, introducing the features that you need. Now, some of these might not be actually the sexiest features you can think about. Installing custom fonts, very important for a large percentage of apps out there. Out-of-prop COM objects. There are so many applications that have COM objects. There are so many apps that rely on those applications having COM objects. So if you're going to come to the desktop bridge, we want to make sure those continue to work. And then finally, just, it feels like it should be Thursday for Throwback Thursday or something, MAPI support. It's, everybody needs mapping. It turns out that sending mail is pretty darn important. So we're introducing MAPI support, which really helps bring those applications forward. So thinking about how do you use the desktop bridge, it really is a journey. First off, you convert your application, which gives you the great AppX deployment pipeline, which really makes your installer just flat out better. It means that you can do a clean uninstall. It's almost impossible to do that well today. It makes it really simple for you to do. That's the first step. Now, once you've got your application into the installer, then you can start to enhance your application by calling UWP APIs. Kevin already showed some of the notifications and tile improvements we introduced in the Creators Update. You can start taking advantage of that, but also some of the app model features that we added in terms of application services, so you can expose your application for other apps to run, and using the background tasks that really enable you to run well in the operating system. We provide you a great way of having a battery-efficient background processing. Difficult to do. Clearly, you can do it in Win32, but it takes a lot of work. Background task makes that really simple to do. And then finally, you're going to start wanting to move your UI to UWP as well. And we'll show some demos in a little bit about being able to talk about that and take advantage of XAML from all your applications, not just the newer XAML-based applications, but we have a blog post that's actually showing it on VB6. Today, we're going to be showing it from WinForms. And then finally, once you've started, your final step of the migration is going full UWP, which enables you to run everywhere that UWP is: Xbox, Surface Hub, phone, Windows. As we were building the desktop bridge and talking with our existing customers on that, we really learned some lessons. Many of the applications just converted pretty easily. A lot of them changed without any code at all, which is clearly the goal, but we really want you to take an opportunity to really look at and start enforcing some rules that, frankly, we've all asked you to do for many years, but never really enforced that. And many of these bugs are, frankly, things you should be fixing in your app anyway. And these bugs, you fix them. We're finding already people are fixing bugs to get into Centennial and to the desktop bridge. But those things work just as well on Windows 7 as they do on Windows 10. So this is making your application better. It's making your users' experience better because the applications work better in the operating system. And then really ensuring that we integrate with the development lifecycle. Obviously, that goes from debugging and writing code, but a large part of what people do is really building those setup packages. Now, I don't know about you, most people don't feel the need. They really want to get up in the morning, first thing they want to do is build a setup package. If you do, then you should probably work on my team. But other than that, most people don't do that. But there are some great third-party tools from Install Shield, from Wix, from Advanced Installer that make it really, really simple for you to create an AppX that works inside of the desktop bridge, as well as an MSI that continues to work on Windows 7. These tools make it super simple. You don't have to convert your app. You just literally press a button, and it creates you an installer that works great on Windows 10. And then finally, once you've got the tech going, making sure that you meet all the store policies if you want to come into the store. But one of the key things we learned is that obviously the store provides a great way to distribute your applications. But if you're distributing inside the enterprise, then maybe that's something you don't necessarily want to do. We have Store for Business, which is great for doing that. But really, when we look at it, every Windows app, the existing Win32 app, should come to Centennial. Your installer will just be so much better. It's almost free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, but it's pretty close. You will get a lot of advantages just by doing that. And you get access to all the UWP APIs that you wouldn't do if you stayed in an existing Win32 app. So I really encourage you, take a look at the desktop bridge. It will make your existing app better. One of the key things the desktop bridge builds on is our deployment pipeline. You may know this as AppX if you see the file format. And this really helps thinking about when you're engaging your users. Your number one thing to do is you want people to install your app. And Kevin talked about this a little earlier. Applications are getting larger and larger. And in some cases in games, they get up to 100 gigabytes. If you have to wait for your entire app to install before your user can run it, there's a high likelihood the user's not going to install it. So we're introducing Streaming Install, which allows you to start using your application before the entire app is downloaded. So that's a great way to get people into your app as quick as they can. But once they're in your app, you want to keep them there. You want to keep them up to date. You want to provide them new features. You want to provide bug fixes. And one of the kind of least known features of UWP is our ability to do differential updates. So we'll show you this in a demo in a moment. But really, this provides you with a huge saving. Think about your CDN costs. If all you're updating is a 64K DLL and your application is 100 megabytes, why should you have to download the 100 megabytes of app again? AppX and our deployment pipeline will just download the changes. So you can it really helps in terms of getting those updates to your users. So it reduces update times. It reduces your CDN costs. Now, if you come to the store, then your CDN costs are essentially zero because we're doing that for you. So that's another great advantage. But more users stay up to date, and everybody wants their users to stay up to date. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Thomas, and he's going to show us a quick demo of that.
OK, so in the pinnacle of Andrew's developer career around, what was it, 15, 20 years ago?
I'm not sure pinnacle is the word I would use.
Well, around 15 to 20 years ago, Andrew wrote this WinForms app. And it's a really simple app. You can see in the same folder is also this Access database, because why wouldn't it be an Access database 15 years ago? And it's a simple app, like I said, a great UI design, Andrew. And what it does is it goes into that Access database, and it pulls landmarks from all around the world out of that database and shows them. So for example, if I click on Seattle, I get a fairly low resolution picture of the Space Needle. Maybe mapping technology wasn't really up to date back then, but you can tell it's a pretty simple app. So I thought, well, what should I do to update it for this demo? As Andrew talked about, the desktop bridge is one great way to bring your apps forward, and so that's what I did. The first thing I did is just package it up. So you can see, now I've got this AppX. It's 512 or so megs, so it's a pretty big app. And like Andrew talked about, we've enabled streaming. So this is a big app, but when I go to install it, I can actually take advantage of streaming to start using it right away. And before I install the app, I want to show you what I had to do to enable that. This is a simple XML file. I dropped this into the package. I didn't have to do anything to the app itself. I just literally put it in the package when I was creating it. And the deployment server is going to do the rest for me. It's going to figure out that that big database file is something that can be streamed down instead of having to be required for me to run the app. So I'll double-click to install it. Click Install. Now watch. The Install button changes to Launch very quickly. The app's open. I can use most of it. Some of it's not there yet. But once the app is done installing, now I can get to it. So pretty easy way to bring the app up to the future using streaming. Now, let's take that one step further. Andrew talked a little bit about Delta updates for the app as well. And of course, just bringing his app forward is not really that exciting. Maybe we should do something to make it more like a modern app with the UWP component. So I put a XAML page on this app. But I'm going to take advantage of Delta updates to only bring down the part of the app that I need. As a matter of fact, I can show you exactly the difference between these two packages using this compare tool. This is built into the SDK. I just pointed it at both of those two packages. And you're going to see that really all I need is this 15 meg. That's it. That's the only differential between these two packages. So if I go back and install this, notice it's going to happen a lot quicker than the other app installed. It's done. That's it. I didn't get that whole 512 meg down, just that 15 meg I needed for the updates.
I noticed you put your name on it now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's better. So.
Oh, okay.
So we can launch the app. It looks kind of like the old one, except we can get a little bit higher fidelity map images now. For example, when I go to look at the Space Needle now, it's a little bit higher resolution than what we had 15 years ago. So that's just the XAML maps control. It's great that I can use that very easily. We can switch around to some other awesome places around the world. We've got the Statue of Liberty as well. And I've got a couple other features you'll see down here. We'll talk about those in just a minute after Andrew talks a little bit more about some of the other engagement features we're bringing to the Creators Update.
Thanks, Thomas.
Yep.
So we'll go back to the slides. Okay. So as Thomas mentioned, we really want to provide ways to help you engage with your users. Now, obviously, the Windows shell is a major part of that. And we've been working closely across the company to ensure that we provide you with a much richer way to do that. First of all, you saw Kevin did this earlier, pinning your application to the start menu. Now, a few of you on Twitter are already scratching your head saying, well, haven't I been able to do that forever? Well, yeah, you have if you wanted to pin a deep link into your application. So we call that a secondary tile. In this, what you've been asking for a long time, frankly, is the ability to pin the primary tile of your application, just as the user would do from the app list. You can now do that from within your application. Now, we know that tiles help get people into your app, but Action Center is really a great way to get more engagement from your users. It's frankly really the only way you can directly talk to your user, because you can send the notifications direct to them. But we've really been building out our template language to ensure that we can provide you with much richer mechanisms. Kevin showed you the progress bar with the data binding. But we're also providing grouping with collections and headers so that you can start to declutter the Action Center and really provide the information that the user wants that is relevant to them. And then finally, again, trying to fix real problems, create a custom timestamp in TOAST. In the past, we've done the timestamp for you, which is not necessarily what you wanted. It just happened to be when it showed up. We're providing you with the ability to do that and to do accreditation. So that allows you to integrate on the machine itself. But increasingly, we see that people are developing and using with Windows as their desktop, but also with their phones. Obviously, Windows Phone, we like that, but realistically, we also realize that Android and iOS are very important on that. Project Roam provides the ability for your applications to start to provide a connected experience and provide intelligence on that, so that your application can really start to take advantage of all the devices that it takes up a user's life. And the key thing to do this is starting to build in all the devices which we go and discover for you. You don't have to go do that. It's, again, something that's really quite complex to go do, and it really does pay to be in the operating system in terms of us being able to go find devices around, literally proximal to you, but frankly, all the devices you use in the day-to-day life. And we're building that into the Microsoft Graph. Okay, this isn't the Microsoft Graph slide. And when we do that, the Microsoft Graph is great in terms of it enables you to see what devices, but we also realize that there are apps that you want to run on those devices. And it could very well be that those apps are actually running on your desktop. And one of the things that we know is that users share links to your website today. It's something we do all the time. We embed it into our emails. We share them via tweets. We put them on Facebook. We use the browser too. What we really want to do is enable you to take control of that. And if you want people to be using your app rather than your website, then you should have the ability to do that. And apps or websites enable you to do that. And what it enables you to do as a developer, you get to choose which applications can take over your existing web links. So all you have to do that is just drop a JSON file in the root of your website, and then you provide the list of applications that you have approved to do it. So in this case, typically it's just going to be your application. You drop in your package family name there. You can give it specific paths. You might want some paths on your website to actually go to your website, some paths to go to your application. And then in the manifest, you just register for the HTTP and HTTPS links. Those of you out there today, you can actually use, you'll see that Facebook is already doing this on Windows today. And it really drives you into the application more. And then once you have the applications and graphs in the right order, when you think about the Microsoft device graph, every device that we're doing, we're expanding the Microsoft graph, which currently has all your email, your events, your calendar, but we're adding a devices node into that. So you can now query the Microsoft graph, and it will return you all the devices that are available to you. And obviously, as we think about this, is that traditionally in the past, we've done it based on your Microsoft account, which is great for consumers. But increasingly, we want to ensure that this works just as well inside of the enterprise, so we're providing AAD support. So all you have to think about is use the Microsoft graph, and it will provide you the devices. It doesn't matter how your user is logged in, it will provide that information. Now, the Microsoft graph is great, it has REST APIs, but what if you want to have real, complete control over what's going on and being able to find out what devices are around you? We're providing a client SDK. We're doing it for, we obviously do it for Windows already. Android, iOS, and others are on the plan. And today, we're actually shipping the Android SDK. It's shipping today from this URL. So you'll be able to download this Android SDK, which enables you to do it both from Java, but also from C#, because we're providing you a Xamarin implementation, so you can go do that. So we really recommend you go look at this SDK. But the best way to look at the SDK and see what it can do is a demo. So let's get to Thomas again. Thomas is going to make my app worse again.
OK, so we're back to where we left off, basically. The app is here. It's the updated version that has the XAML page. And I just wanted to show a couple of those things Andrew talked about for engagement. First and foremost, yes, pin to start. This means pinning your applications tile to start, and the user's in control. So whenever they go to pin this, they get a prompt. It shows up here. And just to show that it's real, what it's going to do is it'll launch the WinForms app just like you'd expect. So it's a regular tile. You can do tile notifications and updates to it as well. Also, he talked a little bit about some of the toast notification features. So let me pop a toast, look in the bottom right-hand corner. And I want you to pay attention to the toast itself. I'm going to click some buttons, but don't look at the buttons. Just look at the toast I click. You see it's updating. That's me using data binding to just update the text in that notification very quickly and easily without having to repop the toast. So I'm not having to interrupt the user again. Even if this toast is an action center, it would maintain its place, and I could just update that text very quickly and easily. Let's switch gears real quick, and let's move over to something Andrew talked about with apps for websites. Now, let's pretend like Andrew sent me an email, and it took me to the website, the companion site that he built for this application 15 years ago. Let me just bring that. Site up. It's you know, it could use
it's the future.
It works. I mean, it does what you'd expect. You know, yeah.
Hey,
anyway,
front page. It's a future.
So you can see why maybe you would want to drive people into the app instead of to the website in this case. So we have the ability to do that. If I was on device, like I'd say I'd gotten an email with a link to this site. We're just going to use the run command, but it would be the same in an email. Now it's going to launch the app instead. That's great. That keeps people off that website. But let's do something just a little bit more advanced, OK?
Implicit animations with marquee, is that what you'll get?
No. I'm gonna use the Roam SDK for Android.
Damn.
So what we've got here, you can see. So this is an Android phone, OK? You can see it up on the screen. I'm just projecting it to the screen. So I'm going to interact with my PC to do the demo because it's, well, here, let's just prove it's real. So this is one of the sample apps we've written to be able to do cross-device stuff. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to drive from over here now, but I'm actually going to launch that same URI, that website, but it's going to go from my Android phone and invoke that URI on my PC. So let me click the Launch URI button. And what you're going to see happen is the app comes up. That's awesome. That's from my Android phone through the cloud, push notification down, wakes the app up on my PC. Awesome. But just because we want to risk it and we're crazy, let's go a little deeper. What if we wanted to get people directly into that new XAML experience instead of that old WinForms experience? Well, what we can do is I can deep link directly into the app as well. I click Seattle, and what do you know? I'm navigated to the world. I'll click Seattle again. There we go. And we get right to the Space Needle. So deep linking into the app using cross-device notifications. Now, one thing I wanted to show you real quickly, the way that I made it so that I could actually get to the website, Andrew talked about this a little bit in the slides, was I simply, instead of going to the site now to go to the app, I put this JSON file up in the root of the website. And then I changed the Apex manifest just to accept that URI, and that's all it took to get that to work both locally on device as well as what happened for cross-device. So that's it. We can go back to Andrew for some more slides.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. So we just scratched the surface on what we're doing in the Creators Update. And there's a number of blog posts that the teams have been putting out. But these 4 in particular really go into detail on what it takes for apps for websites. Go and get the Rome Android SDK. Desktop Bridge for UWP, if you ever felt the need, how would you get a XAML UI showing from VB6, or if you wanted to do share from a WPF app, there's great examples on that. And then finally, a blog article on the tiles and toast notifications that Thomas showed.
If you want the source for that website that Andrew wrote, or that WinForms app, I'm sure we can make that available.
No, I don't think the world is ready for my source.
Okay.
Right? So, but right now, I'd like to hand over to Doreen. She's going to tell us all about Cortana.
Hello, everybody. Everyone's excited in the room today. My name is Doreen Brown. I'm a program manager for the Cortana Skills Kit. And here I'm going to show you how you can work with Cortana to make your apps and your sites and your skills more engaging on Windows 10 and beyond. It's interesting for a minute to think of Cortana not only as a personal assistant, but part of the overall AI ecosystem at Microsoft. And to do this, we really talk about Cortana as an unbound personal assistant, as Satya has mentioned in several of his demos and keynotes. Cortana is available first and best on Windows 10. She is also available on mobile devices such as Android and iOS, and other devices we've announced, like it back in December during our AI event, things like the Harman Kardon speaker device and also things like the car. You all in the room, in the audience, and also on the internet are experts at the things that you do. So you have really great capability at doing a specific thing, features that your customers use. Maybe Cortana would like to do those things someday, but it's not something that she currently has the capability for. The Skills Kit is the developer platform that allows you to expose these capabilities within Cortana's canvas, or the UX in which she appears. Right, this is a set of tooling that allows you to quickly and easily say, this is what my skill is, or my app, or my website, or my bot, or my service is good at. Here's how a user should use it. And here's how you can very easily make it available. In addition to that, we provide a series of contextual knowledge about the end user. Cortana is a personal assistant. She knows a whole lot about her user with their consent. And as the user tells Cortana more about what they're interested in or what he or she likes to do, we can make that available to you in order for you to fully customize your experiences. This Cortana Skills Kit toolkit basically is a very easy way of building this capability. And in order to define a skill, which is the thing that you actually go build, it's 3 easy steps. The first thing you do is you define what we call a skill trigger. And this is how Cortana knows to offer your skill at the right time. For the developer preview, these are related to user speech. So let's pretend for a minute we're a flight tracking app. Basically, when Cortana sees the name of your skill and potentially maybe what we call an utterance or something that a user says, she knows to launch your skill. Next, you provide, if you would like, any additional contextual info about the conversation or the context or kind of whatever Cortana is doing with the user at the time of invocation. So these are things like user profile information, say a cuisine preference or an email address, things like what the user has actually said, right? So what was the actual utterance that was said at runtime? And also any kind of information that is pulled out of the conversation, which is something that you can build in the Cortana portal, and we'll touch on that in just a minute. Next, you define the endpoint that Cortana actually calls to get things done. We showed in the keynote an example of a skill that invoked a Microsoft Bot Framework bot to have a full, rich, multi-turn conversation within the canvas. You can also launch a Windows UWP app if you, say, need much more screen estate or real estate. You can also launch a web service, and we'll touch on that in a demo today. In addition, Android apps and websites are also things that you can utilize. So basically, whatever you've built, you can throw at us, and we'll more or less launch it if we can. This is interesting to talk about. I could go on about theory all day, but it is much more interesting to show you actually how one of these skills is created. What I've got here is the Cortana Developer Center, located at dev.microsoft.com/Cortana. This right now is open to a closed preview, and we've shown a few partners who have built skills already, but here, let's go start something new. I'm going to click on this Create a New Skill button. I'm going to right-click, and then I'm going to left-click like I meant to. And it's basically a simple set of metadata and then conditionals that tells Cortana when to do something. So if a user says something, you should go do the skill or the bot or whatever. In the interest of not digging through all my images to upload an icon, I've already started to fill out this page. So in the keynote, we talked about this company called Northwind Photo. They are able to show different photos based on different contexts. We're going to actually go build that out today, calling a web service endpoint to show you photos at the right time. So you can see I've said my provider name is Northwind Photo. This is how Cortana knows to go launch into your skill. I've provided an icon. And basically, I've registered that if a user says something, we should actually go invoke the skill. Now, you notice here I've already plugged in a few values for what this could be. For example, let's show happy pictures. Let's show photos with interesting people, all that kind of thing like that. And I've specified this photo emotion entity. Now, if you're familiar with Lewis.ai or any of the Microsoft Cognitive Services, this should look familiar to you. The same concept of declaring intents and entities is exactly like it is in Cortana. We actually built this using the same technology. Next, we're going to invoke a target. And like I said, in this case, it is a HTTPS endpoint, so it's a service. And it's actually hooking into an Azure function. This doesn't necessarily need to be an Azure function. It's just convenient to show you how this works back and forth. But as long as you have an endpoint hosted somewhere securely, it's fine. If you have an endpoint under your desk, totally OK. If you're hosting on maybe a Lambda, also totally fine. You have the freedom to choose what is right for you. So we'll jump over to Azure Functions for just a minute. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see the text. All this is really doing is running a very basic, it interprets my request, it prints something out to the console, and then we return a set of JSON. This is a template that we provide to our developer platform as part of the preview. This is just a very simple multi-turn response. So now, if I go to Cortana, ask Northwind Photo to show me a picture. It will actually connect to that Azure function and show this is a card because that is what I asked it to do. And you can see because I actually said don't end the session, it's going to continue listening because it thinks it's a multi-turn conversation. So let's go fix that real quick. I'll say, yep, you should stop listening after a single turn. That's fine. Here is Cortana speaking. It's a little bit stilted, right? It doesn't make a whole ton of sense. So why don't we have her say hello? I'm going to turn my sound up so you can actually hear it. So I'm just going to save this real quick. And if I relaunch Cortana, ask Northwind Photo to show me a picture.
Hello there.
You can see that I'm able to very quickly and easily customize all these experiences very simply through an Azure function. This makes debugging very simple, very straightforward to do. So here's the point where I kind of smile and wave my hands around and take a pre-baked pie out of the oven. And I'm going to jump over to this other Azure function, which I'm just going to kind of copy paste in here because there's a lot of code. Here's where we start taking advantage of the actual natural language capabilities of Cortana and her skills kit. So you'll notice back in the developer portal, we're asking for this photo emotion entity, right? And so that's how we know what kind of photos to show. This is passed through in the JSON object for the request. And so basically all we're doing is we're saying, for this entity, pull it out of the body of the request, and then pivot the response based on what this is. I've put in a few of things here, things like happy, so we can show a happy picture, or if there is no, like if it's a sad picture or something that we just don't know about, we can provide a pretty standard response as well. Right. You'll also notice one other thing, is that we are going to decorate the Cortana canvas with some additional metadata. Cortana can give you all this information, and that's great, but what's even more useful is to be able to act on this data. So what I'm doing is I'm decorating the Cortana canvas with some very basic markdown, where if we have a photo of a happy person, we actually link out to the image for you to download or use or do whatever what you want with it. So now that it's here, I'm just going to save this again. And let's ask Cortana for maybe a picture that Northwind Photo doesn't know about. So, we're a happy app, we're a happy skill. We don't have any sad pictures, so let's actually go try that now. Ask Northwind Photo for a sad picture.
Hello there.
We're going to update what this is. Give me 1 minute. So I'm going to go back here. Save my skill. And then we'll see it work. So basically what happens is every time I sync this down to Cortana, it shows up for the MSA that I'm using to develop. So it's very easy to show this back and forth. Let's try it again. Ask Northwind Photo for a sad picture.
Hello there.
Well, you get what I mean. The idea here, I'll go debug this and then post a real video later. It'll be fine. So yeah, the idea is that Cortana can actually pull these conversational experiences directly out of an intent with the user and show you a fully customized experience at the right time. This is interesting. Right, so let's go back. Actually, let's see if this is actually updated. Well, let's go back to the slide deck. The Cortana Skills Kit preview opens February 27th for services, Windows apps, Android apps, and websites. We showed you an example of this today, just very quickly, building a skill together. I'm going to go check to see why my Azure function didn't work, but we'll post a video and show you all what it's like later on. Now, what does this mean for you? If you're a developer who's built a skill before, it is pretty straightforward to bring your skill to the Microsoft ecosystem. If you look at some of the JSON in the Azure function, it might have looked a little bit familiar. If you are interested in building speech and natural languages experiences, I would recommend reading up on Lewis.ai, as it is the technology that powers Cortana. If you are ready to launch an app, make sure your app is deep link enabled, and so you can actually launch your app from Cortana in the same context. We'll have more news on February 27th, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon. Thank you very much.